Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. The two Koreas verify that both sides have demolished the guard posts along the DMZ that they said they would take down. President Moon Jae-in calls it a landmark day for building trust and an example to the world. Living to fight another day, British Prime Minister Theresa May vows to get on with the job of delivering Brexit after surviving a no-confidence vote by members of her own Conservative Party. Plus, it is kind of approaching a winter wonderland at this point. A blanket of snow has coated most of South Korea's central region. The mercury is also going to take a dip again from this afternoon. So let's start with the weather, why don't we? Can't really make its mind up yet, but we are seeing some relatively heavy snow and have done so over the past hour or so, but it has kind of tapered off a touch. The capital and its surrounding area have been seeing on and off snowfall, in fact, since the break of dawn today. South Korea's weather agency says clouds created by warm air off the west coast of the country, which were expected to dump a lot more snow on the central regions, did not grow as big as forecast. As a result, the heavy snow advisories issued for some parts of Gyeonggi-do province and Gangwon-do province have been taken off. We'll have a more in-depth look at the weather forecast from our very own Lee Ji-hun in about 20 minutes from now. Now let's turn to the ongoing cooperation and easing of tensions between Seoul and Pyongyang. Officials from South and North Korea have completed their joint verification of recently demolished guard posts along either side of the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. Under an agreement reached in September, the two Koreas agreed to tear down frontline guard posts. In the end, they settled on 11 each, so 22 in total. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Park Ji-won with the details.
South Korea's Defense Ministry announced Wednesday that the South Korean teams of inspectors first verified the removal of North Korean guard posts in the morning, and the North Korean teams came south in the afternoon. According to the ministry, the inspectors verified that the guard posts have been completely disarmed and demolished, and that any underground facilities were destroyed as well. The inspection teams were led by active-duty military officers of colonel-level rank, and they used cross-border footpath between each pair of guard posts built specifically for the purpose. It was the first time in 65 years for active-duty soldiers to peacefully cross the military demarcation line. The 11 guard posts on each side, located within 1 kilometer of the military demarcation line, were marked for demolition during inter-Korean military talks earlier this year. The two Koreas had agreed to get rid of a number of them in September's comprehensive inter-Korean military agreement as a show of both sides' willingness to stop all hostile acts against each other. From November, the two sides began removing firearms and troops from them and then tore down the structures, but decided to preserve one of them each for historical reasons. Meanwhile, earlier in the day, President Moon Jae-in was briefed about the inspection by the Defense Minister Chung Kyung-do and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Park Han-gi as he watched live footage of the process. President Moon called the joint inspection a watershed event that shows both Korea's determination to build trust and reduce tensions.
우리 군이 이 한반도 평화 과정을 든든하게 뒷받침을 해 나간다면 오늘의 그 오솔길이 또 평화의 길이 되고 DMZ가 평화의 땅으로 바뀌게 될 것이라고 믿습니다. 남북 양 정상 간의 합의를 양측 군이 착실하게 이행을 하면서 오늘의 신뢰에 이르렀습니다. 이러한 신뢰야말로 전쟁 없는 한반도 실현을 위해서 가장 중요한 동력이라고 믿습니다.
President Moon also called the verification an exemplary case in the international community of military trust building. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, another sign of cooperation between the two Koreas, officials from the south and north will meet very soon to discuss ways to move ahead with the groundbreaking ceremony for railway and road connections. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, the two sides will hold talks on Thursday at the Inter-Korean Liaison Office just north of the border. The meeting is part of efforts to hold the event before the end of the year, if they can, as agreed at the Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang in September. The ministry has already sent a basic plan for the event to the north, and they have been sorting out the details based on that plan. Now, one of the clearest indications yet of how the turbulent global trade conditions are affecting us here in South Korea, new figures show the country's export and import prices dropped sharply last month. According to the Bank of Korea, on this Thursday, South Korea's export prices fell by more than 2% in November compared to the previous month. The appreciation of the local currency contributed to the drop in export prices, the trading at an average of 1,128 won against the greenback. That's a 0.2% drop from a month previous to that. Import prices, they fell even more by 4.6% on month, mainly due to a drop in international crude prices. Dubai crude, which is Korea's benchmark, slumped more than 17% compared to the previous month to around $65. South Korea's new finance minister has been laying out how he plans to tackle the economic woes facing the country at the moment. He gathered together the heads of different ministries, not just once, but twice on Wednesday, to get some assurances that all of them are pulling in the same direction to help the country out. Kim Hae-sung reports.
The key is to raise economic vitality and economic fundamentals. At the first economy-related ministers' meeting since he took office, the new finance minister Hong Nam-gi said he'll continue carrying out President Moon Jae-in's three main policies of income-led growth, innovative growth, and building a fair economy. But he added that given the current economic difficulties like sluggish job growth and a widening wealth gap, his team will focus on raising economic vitality and fundamentals through structural reform and cooperation with the private sector.
The government will play a supporting role for the private sector. We will improve policies that have somewhat differed from the market's expectations. For instance, the minimum wage hike and the 52-hour work week. We have included complementary measures to adjust the pace of change.
Minister Hong also said the government will front-load next year's $416 billion budget so that planned investments can be carried out quickly and help boost the economy. He also vowed to strengthen inclusive growth to support young people and the self-employed and to address challenges like the low fertility rate and aging society. On the same day, Minister Hong also presided over another ministerial-level meeting joined by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Trade, in which he laid out policies to navigate the country through external economic challenges. He pointed to rising interest rates in the U.S. and the U.S.-China trade dispute as some of those challenges and said his economic team will run contingency plans to address volatility in the financial markets. On the trade front, Minister Hong vowed to diversify Korea's trading partners and work to get exemptions from the U.S. on auto tariffs. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Only one place to start today's world news, and that is London. British Prime Minister Theresa May has survived a no-confidence vote triggered by members of her own party over her handling of Brexit. They're not happy with how she's handled it at all thus far. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our No Adam. So, Adam, Prime Minister May won the backing of most of her Tory colleagues.
That's right, Mark. 200 votes, in fact, were cast in favour of the Prime Minister, while 117 were against. Now, that still signals a bitter divide within the Conservative Party, as more than a third of Tories do not have faith in May. But she will remain the Tory leader, at least for now. She's safe from another challenge from within her own party, at least for the next 12 months. But ahead of the vote, she says she will step down before the next parliamentary election, which is due in 2022. Speaking after the results, May said she would press on with the Brexit process.
Whilst I'm grateful for that support, a significant number of colleagues did cast a vote against me, and I've listened to what they said. Following this ballot, we now need to get on with the job of delivering Brexit for the British people and building a better future for this country.
The tough task of getting her Brexit deal passed through Parliament still remains. MP have publicly said they will vote it down. If the divorce agreement does not go through, then it's all back to square one, with only a few months left until the UK is scheduled to leave the EU on March 29th. There are suggestions of the possibility of a postponed Brexit or even a no-deal scenario, though the majority of MPs do not wish for that to happen. Mrs May will head back to Brussels on Thursday to try and get reassurances on the agreement, especially on the so-called backstop issue, which is the key sticking point in this tumultuous Brexit process. In other news, President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, has been sentenced to 3 years in jail for a slew of irregularities surrounding Trump's presidential campaign. The charges include lying to Congress about Trump's business dealings in Russia and funneling hush money to 2 women who claim to have had an affair with the president. Once known as Trump's fixer, Cohen told a federal judge on Wednesday that his, quote, blind loyalty to his boss led him to cover up what he called the president's dirty deeds. Cohen becomes the first member of President Trump's inner circle to be jailed over special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Chinese state media is reporting that a former Canadian diplomat is being questioned on suspicion of harming China's national security. Michael Cohen, who now works for the International Crisis Group, was detained in the country on Monday, and it came just days after the arrest of Huawei's chief financial officer in Canada. The Canadian government says it sees no explicit link to the Huawei case, adding it is seeking consular access to Cohen as soon as possible. Diplomats in China also suggest Beijing could accuse the ICG of spying, which the group has denied. Meanwhile, China's foreign ministry gave no details about Cohen's arrest, but said the ICG was not registered in China and its activities in the country were illegal. The ICG closed its Beijing office 2 years ago due to changes in Chinese laws regarding NGOs. Now, as we reach the tail end of 2018, Google has released its top searches of this year. From the excitement of the Russia World Cup to the glitz and glamour of the royal wedding in the United Kingdom, our Lee Sing-jae takes us through the top search words of 2018.
2018 was another year of excitement, joy, and at times tragedy. As the year draws to a close, Google has revealed the top searches of the year. Google broke down the top trending searches in the world over the past 12 months, with keywords that had the highest spike in traffic this year compared to 2017, not necessarily the keywords that were searched for the most. Topping the list, one of the biggest international sporting events of the year, the 2018 Russia World Cup. With 32 countries competing, searches for the World Cup saw the biggest year-on-year spike in 2018 thanks to the global reach of football and the fact that the tournament only happens once every 4 years. The royal wedding in Britain was ranked 6th. On May 19th, Prince Harry and American actress Meghan Markle tied the knot in what was probably the most discussed wedding of the year. And when Black Panther hit theaters in January, it was a smash hit right off the bat, as it starred the first black lead in a superhero movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. By March, the movie became the highest-grossing superhero movie of all time in the US and was the 5th top trending keyword of 2018. Despite the excitement and joy, 2018 was also a year of tragedy. That was seen with the most number of searches being celebrities who died in 2018. Among the top searched names were Swedish DJ Avicii, rapper Mac Miller, the creator of Marvel Comics Stan Lee, celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, and theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking, to name a few. With the new year just around the corner, which keywords will headline 2019? Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The top diplomats of South Korea and Japan spoke on the phone on Wednesday about the recent court rulings in Seoul, ordering Japanese companies to compensate Koreans forced to labor during World War II. The ruling caused tensions between the neighbors, but the phone call is being seen by watchers as a positive step in the right direction. Lee Ji-won reports.
Their phone call Wednesday morning was the first time since the forced labor ruling in October that the foreign ministers of South Korea and Japan have discussed the issue directly. According to South Korea's foreign ministry, Minister Kang Kyung-hwa explained Seoul's stance to Minister Taro Kono and urged Japan to respond to the issue prudently. The two ministers agreed to stay in close communication. A senior official at South Korea's foreign ministry said the exchange can be seen as an easing of Tokyo's hardline stance. Though the rulings involve individuals and private firms, they sparked much tension between the two countries' governments. Japan has strongly protested the outcome, arguing that the issue was settled through the 1965 bilateral agreement, under which Tokyo paid Seoul $500 million to normalize their diplomatic relations. The South Korean government has urged Japan to tone down the harsh rhetoric and said both sides should respect judicial independence. Soon after the ruling, Seoul also formed a group of officials and experts to formulate an official government response, while saying that Seoul-Tokyo ties need to remain oriented towards the future. The defendant in the ruling, Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation, is yet to respond. The lawyers of plaintiffs requested that it give one by December 24th, saying that if the firm does not respond by then, it'll take steps to seize the firm's assets in South Korea. In late October, Seoul's top court ordered the steelmaker to pay 4 of the victims and their families around $87,000 for unpaid work. In November, there was a similar ruling in 2 cases involving forced labor by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Both companies argued that the 1965 bilateral agreement meant the case was closed, but the Supreme Court reasoned that the agreement did not terminate the right of individuals to seek reparations. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Switching gears now, a breakout success in the world of gaming this year has been the multiplayer shooter known as Battleground. Made in Korea, it has a staggering 400 million registered users around the world. But like those virtual gun-toting players, many game developers in Korea are having their own struggle to survive in these trying times. Won Jong-hwan with the details.
The Korea Games Conference marks its 18th anniversary this year. Organized by the Korea Game Developers Association, the annual forum was held on Wednesday to share the latest trends and discuss ways to tackle the industry's most important issues. And the topic for this year's edition was the way to survive. Korea's gaming industry has grown over the past 20 years to the point where it has become recognized as the home of online games. But there is a growing gap between the rich and poor, that is, between the super developers and the small developers.
10 to 15 years ago, the game development industry in Korea might have been a blue ocean stage due to the growth of domestic-made, massively multiplayer online role-playing games. But now, it has become a red ocean, with problems such as how the money for game development often only circulates around large corporations.
One developer who has won the first prize for the global advancement of Korean gaming claims that promotion is the biggest obstacle for small developers to grow further in the market.
Big corporations tend to promote their games through mass media, sometimes even with the help of celebrities. But for us, developing a game already takes a lot of money and effort. In terms of making the game successful, personally, I feel that some 20% is about the actual content, and the rest is about promotion.
At the conference, veteran game developers shared know-how in the variety of areas that are necessary for survival in the industry. Experts say, as games are facing new opportunities in conjunction with new trends such as VR, AI, and blockchain, Korean developers, especially indie developers, need new strategies to survive in the upcoming fourth industrial revolution. 원정환, Arirang News.
Now, with trends changing all the time here in Korea, people have become nostalgic for a time when things were just simpler and life moved at a much slower pace, meeting the demand for a return to the traditional, but of course with a modern twist. A design festival appealing to a taste of the past is taking place in southern Seoul. Seo Eun-kyung reports.
Traditional Korean pottery pieces turn into toys and small dining tables from some decades ago. These and many more items are serving to transport visitors down memory lane. Hundreds of products and artworks, original and reinvented, are exhibited at this design fair. A sieve made with horsehair, originally used when brewing alcohol, comes together with an ancient piece of pottery from the Joseon dynasty to be reborn as a coffee filter.
It's really interesting to see products with this theme of futuristic retro. I really like it.
A traditional interior accessory is reborn into a bookmark, and traditional Korean knot crafting is applied to make a bracelet and a flower pot hanger.
At design fairs and shops, it's hard to find products that show Korea's tradition charm. So we decided to use traditional materials to make everyday kind of items, so more people can enjoy Korea's unique beauty.
There are also pieces of art and products encouraging visitors to think about a unified Korea and also lives from people from the north.
A Korean designer conveys the wish of seeing a unified Korea one day, depicting people from both Koreas communicating, building up friendships, and falling in love.
I imagine Korea being unified, and I create designs to connect young people living in both countries. Unification feels so real to me since I happen to have a friend from the north. I want to share my feelings with others through my work.
Seeing these trains go all the way up and down the peninsula, I can imagine myself traveling to Russia by land. I look forward to seeing a unified Korea.
The Seoul Design Festival marks the 17th installment this year and has brought together more than 600 professional designers and their works under the theme of Young Retro, bringing Korea's traditional charm to modern daily life. Seo Eun-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning. Seoul has turned into a winter wonderland. It was still snowing on my way to the weather center, but we should see less snow than expected, which should be enough to cause traffic problems during the day today. But the snowfall should let up shortly after dropping 1 to 3 centimeters of snowfall over parts of the west coast. Readings, though, will be similar to yesterday, but the snow could cause icy roads, and of course, pedestrians will need to walk with special care. But colder air will follow today's snow, and morning lows for the next 2 days will get closer to near -10 degrees Celsius again here in the capital. And as for today's daily highs, readings again will be similar to yesterday. Seoul getting up to 3 degrees Celsius, 7 degrees for Daegu, Gyeongju, and Gwangju this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave the news for now on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast coming up in around 90 minutes' time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Arirang Radio's Turn Up Party Radio Gaga.
Arirang Radio is having a special broadcast to send off 2018.
Yubin, Hotshot, Dreamcatcher, Into It.
Hosted by Isak and Benji.
December 17th, Monday at 1 p.m.
Arirang Tower's second floor is the place to be.
Don't miss Arirang Radio's Turn Up Party